And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 5 of History's Greatest Idiots, the show in which we delve through the corridors of history and bring you the craziest, most insane, and stupid decisions ever made by humans so that you can learn from them and never repeat the mistakes again. But who are we kidding? They're mistakes, they happen, and we love them because it gives us material. Fuck it, content's amazing. Joining me as ever is my amazing co-host, Derek. Derek, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm all energized and ready to go,
That's good.
despite being super tired.
Yeah, I get that as well. I think it's an old thing that wrestlers used to do the night before an event. This is just an excuse to drink, but basically, a lot of them in the 90s would go out drinking the night before a pay-per-view, and their reasoning was, if we go out drinking, you're sharper when you are hungover and tired because you have to focus. Whereas if you're like comfortable and you've had a good night's sleep, you're really relaxed. Whereas if you're stressed and exhausted, you're more likely to focus. I just think it's an excuse to go out and get drunk myself.
It sounds like one. I don't know about you, but I'm usually a sloppy, unfocused mess when I'm hungover. So
if I get less than 8 hours, you fucking forget it. Like, I'm having a nap at lunchtime. I'm having a European lunch break right there. I'm just like falling asleep for an hour and a half. Forget whatever work's going on. So yeah, but that's us. We're like in our 40s, so yeah, it's just the way of the world. So how's stuff over in Arizona?
It's not bad. Baseball started back up for my son. They're into the varsity season. He's actually gotten to pitch some innings. He's doing well. So
awesome. It's good to hear.
How about things there?
Things over in the West Midlands of England are rather good. The builders are coming back in this coming week again. We're having so we've got kind of a flat roof on what were the outbuildings, which are now a utility room and downstairs shower room. We're having that redone because it's like the roof's 20 years old at this point, and it's like starting to go a little bit. So we want to make sure it's weatherproof and stuff.
Is it staying flat?
It's going slightly sloped. So okay. We're going to put a little bit of a pitch on it just to make it a little bit easier on us. But also, while we're there, we're going to get the builders to drill through because they forgot to do something. We wanted to have there's these things in the UK where you have very old Victorian thing where you would have a kind of a drying rack on the ceiling, which you could lower by ropes and pulleys, and it's just like a series of beams that were locked together by a metal thing in the middle, and you'd hoist it up and things that hang above the fire, and then you'd hoist it down to get them off and stuff. So we were going to have a modern day version of that, but they forgot to put it in. So they're going to kind of make tiny little holes either side of where the beams in the ceiling are, so that we can attach the thing to them without going into the stud roof, so
okay,
there's a whole construction thing. I just pay people to do shit, and I don't really know what half of it means. It's like going to a mechanic. So my car's getting its MOT on Wednesday. It's getting its yearly service so it can be road legal, and they could tell me literally anything that is wrong with this car, and I would have to believe them because they're mechanics. What the fuck do I know that they don't? So it's like, yeah, they could literally tell me.
You could always YouTube it.
I could in the moment, but at that time, they're so convincing. It's like, oh, you need £900 to fix the filters that have been destroyed in a freak space mystery accident. The quarks have come through the atmosphere. Okay, yeah, that happens all the time. Okay, sure.
Well, it does. Yeah, them quarks are always messing up filters.
Oh yeah, they really fuck with your engine. So that's really what's going on here. But we're trying a little bit of a different format here this week. Something Derek's proposed, and I'm really interested to see it. So Derek, please tell us about your idiot for this episode.
Okay, so the guy that I have today was because I was watching Netflix documentaries, as I do, as most of my people tend to be. Dirty Money is this really good series about financial crimes and things. And
it's so good. It's
a few people I've covered actually came from there, even though I hadn't seen it until this last week.
Wow.
So This guy, though, is an American businessman that was born in Kansas City, Missouri.
Right.
And grew up there. They have him listed, and this is a weird thing, as a race car driver. And it goes back and forth every now and again on his Wikipedia page, because Wikipedia, as it is, you edit it.
Edited by everyone.
And I feel like he might have some people that go in and edit his stuff, but it's stayed businessman now, but also racketeer, loan shark, and, amateur racer now.
Of course, yes, because you've got to get paid for that shit to be a professional, of course.
I got him on my radar, though, because of the whole loan shark loophole fraudster guy thing.
Sure.
It has nothing to do with his racing in Le Mans. He didn't get lost in any deserts.
Oh, that's such a shame. We could have had an American Mark Thatcher. That would have been hilarious. Holy shit.
So the guy's name is Scott Tucker. And
that sort of rings a bell.
He actually went to prison in 1991.
Right.
For mail fraud and false statements.
Oh.
But what got him into trouble here later on was when he started his online business, AMG Services.
Okay.
That business went in and made payday loans. I don't know if you guys ever had those.
Yeah, we've still got them now. It's a big problem.
It seems like they were bigger in the early 2000s to when everything fell apart.
I think that's it. Like I seem to remember around about 2009 onwards, for about 5 years, and actually a friend of mine can attest to this. A lot of big stores closed down because obviously the financial crash, and they just went out of business. And a lot of like pawn shops, cash for gold, payday loan shops opened up. And also, this is interesting, my friend at the time worked for a large national bingo company, if you can believe it, with bingo. But I know this is a big business. All of a sudden, they started raking in the money because people were like, they go to these places with like £5, they'd buy 5 books or whatever it is they get, and they'd have a drink, they get some food, they stay there. But like in times of financial hardship, it's weird that like gambling and payday loans and cash for money and all that, it's like people need cash, right? But these businesses appear, and they are specifically designed to fleece people out of as much of it as possible, despite the fact they have nothing, so.
And that's the thing that I think, I mean, personally, I had payday loans and I was victim to like multiple at a time.
Yeah.
I won't claim that I was one of the people that were like taken advantage of. I mean, I was preyed upon, and a lot of money
goes in there, really.
Yeah, well, and I knew what I was getting into. Like most of the people in this case didn't know that they were getting into a loan where it was just a rollover fee. There was no interest. It was just, $95, $95, $95. After 4, we're going to just start charging you a whole bunch of money because now you have to start paying it back.
Yeah, exactly.
The reason that I continued to want to cover this guy is because in Dirty Money, he does all of these interviews, and his family does these interviews, and he plays the victim really well. Like, this overzealous government is coming in here and it's taking all of my Ferraris. It's seized up all of my assets. They've closed down all of my banks. I can't get a bank account. I can't get a job. I have to live in this mansion free because I still get to stay here, but everything's seized.
What a fucking hardship.
And I guess I wandered off. I feel bad for him, but at the same time, the complaints that he has happen to be the same complaints that are the reason why his customers existed. They couldn't get a bank account. They're tight on money.
Yeah, they couldn't get a job. That things had fallen apart for them, maybe. So basically, he is experiencing what his customers, quotation marks, did, but on a far lesser scale, because he still has a fucking mansion. So
yes, yeah.
Jesus.
I'm not sure how he got to start a business after being in prison for felony counts. I know most of the people that I know that are felons don't run out and start businesses, but he started this online business in 2001, AMG Services, doing payday loans.
Right.
He generated over $3.5 billion in revenue just from June 2008 to June of 2013.
Jeez, that's insane.
It's the stats on it is that he made loans to 4.5 million Americans, and he was able to do this even in states where the payday loans were illegal, because the high interest loans are illegal, because he found a loophole. And that's another reason why I'm covering him, because I hate people that get away with being assholes because they found a loophole. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Him and his brother started that business and then ventured online with these loans into states where they couldn't do it by creating a licensing sort of agreement with Native American tribes, because Native American tribes are sovereign.
That's right. Yeah. So there's like tax exemptions and stuff like that. So
also, the state laws don't apply to sovereign federal lands. Only federal laws apply, and there were no payday loan laws regulating interest or fees.
Sure.
So people in like Colorado and Nebraska were getting these loans online at super high interest rates, even though their government in their local areas tried to do the right thing to make sure that they couldn't fall victim to it. They fell victim to it anyway, because Scott Tucker and his brother and business partner went to a couple of different Native American tribes in Oklahoma and some other places and got them to license it out. So they filtered their online payday loan companies through the tribal entities.
Ugh,
so
gross.
They skated around state lending laws that way. The big thing on it was they were actually running it like a business, and they didn't think they were doing anything wrong. They were skirting these loopholes, and they were hiring all kinds of people, and generally people were even happy to work there.
Yeah, it's weird how, when you run something with an air of legitimacy, it sort of validates the business for certain people, right? That I don't know if you've noticed this, and this is just complete tangent, right? Have you seen the new show that's out? I don't know what it's on in the States. It's on Disney Plus over here, of all things. The Dropout. Really?
Yes, I've been watching that.
It's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I'm like, I remember when Lev told me about that.
Yeah, Elizabeth Holmes and her weird fake voice. And Theranos, so a number of people within the business at varying levels, like engineers, chemists, executives, all knew that it was bullshit and fake and couldn't work and wouldn't work and were there for years. But because they had health insurance, because they were getting paid, blah, 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 and because the company kept on bringing in money and it had structure and people in positions like corporate this and manager of this, and like it gave it an air of legitimacy, despite the fact it is one giant con. And I urge everyone out there to watch The Dropout. It's fucking amazing. Amanda Seyfried is unbelievable as Elizabeth Holmes. Also, Stephen Fry is heartbreaking as Ian. I can't remember his second name, particularly as his character, spoiler alert, commits suicide. Stephen Fry survived a suicide attempt 2.5-3 years ago now in real life. So yeah, that's dark. Stephen Fry, by the way, Renaissance man. Everyone should read up about him. He does everything: director, writer, actor, comedian, musician. He can do everything. But no, this is beside the point. So what I'm talking about is an air of legitimacy to any operation. Let's call it that, right? Like even Al Capone, right, must have had accountants. So you have an official air of something. It lends it legitimacy, and after a while, people buy into it as a real thing, despite the fact that it's probably breaking the law, like this guy and his brother.
Right.
Which is crazy.
They carried on from 2008, like I said, until 2012, when the Federal Trade Commission filed a civil suit against AMG Services, saying that they engaged in illegal business tactics.
Well, yeah.
And then in 2014, the U.S. grand jury subpoenaed the AMG Services as part of a criminal probe looking into possible violations of statutes of wire fraud, money laundering, and racketeering. So this guy's trying to be a mobster without the mob, and that gets you into trouble because the mob at least has the mob to protect him from the government, who doesn't.
Yeah, the mob has guns and kneecapping materials, so...
No, luckily he didn't do anything violent to his customers. They were like verbally abusive, and the script that they were told to follow on collecting this money was kind of a bummer. They did such asshole things, like putting little money bags all over their script on how to keep these customers engaged in their loan, and how to make them understand that it's all their fault that they didn't understand that these were just fees and they weren't actually paying any principal towards their loans. And that type of behavior kind of bums me out, that was somehow able to be normalized, where there was a bunch of Americans going into work and just being crappy to other humans for the sake of interest payments and money. And the people that get payday loans, like I said, were like me. Yeah. You're out of work. You need $150, $200 to get by.
Yeah. Just pay this bill, get this shopping. Maybe like you need like, I don't know, a pair of socks, whatever it is, like little things, loads of little things, or one bill, and you're set, right? But that $150, $200 turns into like thousands.
Yeah.
So quickly.
$150 loan with them, if you didn't pay extra, would end up being $975.
That's fucking insane.
That's so messed up. But yeah, he continued to say, we didn't do anything wrong. They knew what they were getting into. They're grown people. And
no, that I don't buy that excuse. They're adults. They knew what they were doing. You can't ever just classify someone as an adult and just use it as a get out of jail free card. Adults have multiple different facets to their personality, and you don't know anyone's specific circumstances, mentally, physically, emotionally. There are so many different things going on. You can't just say they're adults, it's their responsibility. That is absolute bullshit. I completely reject that argument every time.
It's a total cop-out, because when you're desperate and you don't have a choice, and it's like, I need to turn my heat on because it's going to be -3 tonight.
Fuck yes.
Then you go get that loan and you're hooked, and there's nothing you can do, and you just grind on. Anyway, September 2016, the federal district court judge ordered that Tucker and his other defendants in that case from back in 2012 and 2014 pay a record judgment of $1.266 billion for deceiving consumers across the country and illegally charging them undisclosed and inflated fees.
Good.
Unfortunately, the Supreme Court just like a month ago overturned that award, because they believe the Federal Trade Commission should pursue other remedies for recovering the money that's gotten through ill-gotten gains. I guess they want them to do it a different way, so they're screwing everything up.
Yeah, like how? What, you're gonna like put him in a fucking like thing above a bucket of water and charge people $5 to throw like things at a target and see if they can get him in the water? Like, what else are you gonna do? Seize his shit and give it to people.
Well, and they did. They seized his Ferraris, his race cars, his mansions, his bank accounts. $285 million or so they got back from him.
That's disgusting.
Of that, $117.5 million he failed to report in his income in 2009 and 2010, so that got tacked on to some of his other charges. Then in February of 2016, he was indicted and arrested for violations under RICO and the Truth in Lending statutes, which is actually on all of the forms the contracts that you sign on these loans. It's big in the middle, and it seems like, hey, you know, $95, and I'm done. But then there's the fragmented and it's not even all together. It's like, here's a sentence that says what you're going to be getting into, and here says some requirements, and down in this part of this paragraph over here.
Oh, that's fucking bullshit. You can't have a treasure map of, you know,
6 different spots on their contracts.
Oh, that's fucking ridiculous. Come on.
That Truth in Lending, RICO, and 14 counts of making illegal payday loans and racketeering.
Good.
Are the charges that got to him by December of 2017. They added those false tax returns.
Yeah.
And then started seizing stuff. And he went to trial, and he's appealing, and then he's in trial. And while this is going on, his brother's stuff is seized as well. And this is the saddest part of the entire story, is that his brother actually committed suicide when the convictions were coming in. And I feel like because he knew they were wrong.
Right,
and sometimes it's difficult to deal with that guilt when it finally comes crashing down on you. I know I've had a lot of time because I actually worked at a payday loan place as well. So I was on the other side.
Yeah. So you saw how murky the waters were from the water, essentially. Yes. It's really sad. You know, you were talking about his brother committing suicide. You remember the Bernie Madoff thing? I don't know. Have we covered Bernie Madoff? I don't know if we have.
We covered Enron.
Yeah, which were closely tied to Madoff.
Bouncing around.
Yeah.
Which I totally forgot. Random off topic. Back on the Dropout, I totally forgot that her dad was actually involved in Enron. And when that came up, I'm like, oh, yeah.
That's right. She was dodgy from the start. Holy shit.
Yeah.
But so the Bernie Madoff thing, his sons were involved in the business, right? But incredibly, he kept all of the dodginess from them. He was just like, right, you run this side of the business, you run this side of the business, and the stuff that was off the books, you know, all of the filtering of other people's money and the theft and the Ponzi scheme and stuff like that. They were just running a business, right? He was running a con that had a business on top of it, essentially, to hide it. One of his sons ended up getting, I want to say, leukemia or something like that, or a quite aggressive form of cancer. His other son committed suicide when they found out, because they were all the way along. They were like, Dad, we can't believe this is happening. This is terrible. This isn't true, right? Because they had no idea. They were just so busy doing their end of the bargain of upholding the business. And they got so much hassle from the public who were like, oh, they must have known something. And multiple investigations have said they knew nothing. They were just too busy running the business. And one of them's dead now. That's so tragic when something like that happens. This is a little different from this guy, but still.
A little bit different, but kind of the same. Like when you're messing with people's money and their livelihood and you're screwing people and you know it.
Yeah.
Same range. And that's another sad part of this story is his adopted daughter is interviewed on that Dirty Money show and talks about how he's a great businessman and she wants to be like him and he ran a great business. And it's like, he was so good at saying, I didn't do anything wrong. I was just running a business. I started to believe him.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the skill of con men is confidence. They give you confidence in their words.
I feel like he lied so hard that he believed that he didn't do anything wrong. He just was, ruining people's lives. That's all.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because sometimes we see situations like this, right? Politicians or businessmen or con artists or whatever it might be, Kanye West. And we see people and we're like, they can't honestly believe this shit, can they? They do. A friend of mine who will remain nameless, I won't even say what he does, had at the time for a few years worked quite closely with Theresa May in an unofficial capacity, who was then the British Prime Minister before Boris can fuck off. But, anyway, Boris's predecessor, Theresa May. who inherited Brexit and had to set everything up. And she just had a thankless task, and she was weird. And she was a conservative, so she's got that problem going against her. Anyway, when he met Theresa May, she sat down. She was very jovial with him. She was very open and honest. She's like, "Oh, hello, yes, nice to meet you," and shook his hand. And they were chatting away about what they were going to do at this thing. And then she walked away. It was the first time he'd met her, and she said, "Oh, you can call me Teresa." And he was like, "Oh, that's really nice. Prime Minister just told me to call her Teresa." When she walked away after this 10-minute conversation, a lackey came up to him and went, "You call her Prime Minister." And he was like, "All right." She just told me I could call her Teresa. Anyway, so I asked him, because he worked with her, I think, about half a dozen times, and like hours and hours at a time, like spent most of the day with her on most of these occasions. And I said, "What's she like?" And he was like, "There's a few things you need to know about Theresa May. One, she's really frail, because she had type 1 diabetes. So she would go from room to room, and she'd just go from seat to seat. Essentially, she just sat down most of the time. And they were very careful to hide that from the media, just how frail this quite tall woman was." And the next thing he said, all of her advisors, all the people she has around her that aren't elected members of parliament, MPs, stuff like that, they're all from Eton. They're all deluded rich kids, and none of them have any idea what's going on in the real world around them. They're all to the manor born. They're all born into wealth. They go to these amazingly expensive schools, and then they don't interact with the rest of the country. They're just upper class.
I want to do that.
Live in that bubble of privilege. It's like we talk about, people talk about white privilege. This is another level of white privilege, right? This is like born into wealth.
It's green privilege.
It's green privilege, historic privilege. These are people who are like, my great grandfather was part of Henry VIII's army or whatever, they inherited their land or shit. Anyway, but the other thing he said, and this is what really got me, I was like, she can't mean the stuff she says, right? And he's like, she believes every fucking stupid word she says. All of that ultra conservative, ultra nationalistic, all of it, like, we have to cut people's money, we have to cut this resource and that resource, we have to, all of the stuff that inherited, that they inherited in terms of debt, they were like, we're going to cut funding for all of this and this. She thought it was the right thing to do, and I was like, that's insane. How can they not see that what they're doing is in the long term going to cause disaster? And they're just true believers. And that's what this guy is. He like you said, he believes his own bullshit.
Well, him and his lawyer, Timothy Murr, were both on that show saying, no, he didn't do anything wrong. His lawyer bought into his crap so much that he was indicted on federal charges in Manhattan.
Oh.
And then, everything came crashing down. 14 counts of racketeering, wire fraud, money laundering, the TILA, truth in lending thing. September 2018, I skipped the wrong spot. He he was convicted on those charges and sentenced to 16 years and 8 months. And his lawyer is serving a 7-year sentence.
Fucking brilliant. Wow.
I skipped over so much, like the part where he bought the Rolex sports cars series and bought himself into that. He paid for a reporter to follow him around and interview him on the racetrack after his amateur races. He got himself into America Le Mans series.
Sure.
He actually raced in the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Oh, wow.
And came in 10th.
Seriously. That's not bad. Holy shit. He's decent. Motherfucker can drive.
He bought his way into racing to try and legitimize himself, and I almost wish he would have just gone into racing after he got out of prison for screwing people the first time.
Exactly. It's like, okay, you got money somehow. Just go into racing. Like, that world needs weird people who are good at business, like, because like you said, he's good at business, just highly illegal. So like, go into the racing industry, make a good go of it, make it financially viable, and do stuff like that the world of sports is littered with failed attempts at franchises because people run out of money because they don't plan it properly. If you're a good businessman, the smartest thing you can do is buy a sports franchise and run it properly because it will give you constant income from every different source.
And that's really where I think he should have gone, because all of the people in his racing life, his pit crew people, the team managers, all the people on his racing teams really liked him, said he was a great guy, was all about business. It was a great place to work. Except for all of the money came from screwing over poor people.
Yeah, I wonder if like part of the reason he's like, I didn't do anything wrong, is because he's been told, and possibly rightly so, because like people, the worst people in the world can be really personable, right? As we'll find out in my thing. But like, if you're told that, oh yeah, he's really good at parties, or like he's a really good guy to talk to, oh god, you can really have a really interesting conversation with this guy, or just a really warm person, he's so generous with his money and stuff. Like, if you hear that enough, you kind of don't recognize the other terrible shit you're doing, and you're like, well, that must be wrong. Everyone tells me I'm a good guy. No, you've also been fucking over half of the country at the same time.
Right.
So,
and that's the lesson right here with Scott Tucker, American businessman, racketeer, loan shark, mobless mobster. Yeah, if you're going to screw people over, pay attention and realize that you're doing it, and at least be man enough to own up to what you're doing wrong so that you can learn and not be brutally evil in all aspects of your life.
Insight is such an important thing in life. Insight into yourself, you know, and it looks like this guy didn't have that, which is, it's a real shame, but 16 years in prison, still gets a mansion.
He actually got some time added on here, but I didn't have the time to find that.
So
I think he had 18 months, 36 months added on.
Did he smuggle a cell phone in, or shank a guard?
I can't find where it's at. I think it was just more stuff from racketeering and wire fraud and something else that they found out he did.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
When all that went down, all of the 600 employees that he had didn't have work anymore also. So he screwed them over too in the long run. I mean, although that was kind of the government, but really him.
Yeah. That's really bad when that happens, you know. People, and again, like we talk about employees who know that they're probably not doing anything great. Like they've got their own shit to deal with. So, you know, it's not fair for them to have to suffer for this guy's machinations. But yeah, that's so bad. It's going to be an interesting score, this one, because this was an eventuality, right? Like, no matter how much, and again, we go back to Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos and stuff like that. Like, eventually, the bubble's going to burst. When you're involved in something like Enron, like Theranos, like AMG Industry, whatever it was called. Services, you're involved in a business like this, which is inherently corrupt or inherently wrong or flawed, deliberately so, potentially, it's going to end in misery. It's just a question of time. And whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it might be, it's coming. And for that alone, like, as good businessmen, and he apparently is a good businessman see these things coming. This is why Warren Buffett is so good at investing. He sees these things coming, and that's one of the best things you can have, best skills you can have as a leader of industry, as a titan of industry, is seeing the future and where the tide is going, you know? So
he clearly didn't see the future because he got out of prison for doing the same stuff and did it again, just bigger.
So he's literally just a very effective criminal. That's all he is. He is a con man who can't change his ways because it's all he knows. If he was an actual businessman, he would transition into a straightforward line of work where it's not about earning as much money as possible, because really that's all he's done. He's like, I need as much money as possible. And that's what he was focused on. He wasn't focused on 20-year growth with like a 3.5%, you know, annual increase in returns or whatever. It's like, give me the mansions and the Rolexes and the fucking Le Mans cars and all that, you know?
Yep. Yeah, and there was thousands of people that ran legal payday loan places and still do. They're not great, but what he was doing was excessive. 700% interest.
That's disgusting. Anything above. This is the question, because the finances are so, probably deliberately so confusing and dull at the same time.
Yeah, they are.
If you're looking at an interest rate of more than like 10%, fucking really think hard about if you want to get involved in that. Like, my mortgage is tiny and the interest rate is even tinier. So like, that's about it. As far as like my student loans, okay, that's like good debt and stuff. But like, when it comes to finances, if anything is above 10%, probably don't do it, because the consequences of having to pay back that extra money, it's gonna be far worse than the potential of like paying off whatever it is you want to pay off. Just think really hard about it. So in terms of scoring this guy, he's in prison, which is great. Like, immediately, that means like, this ain't happening again. This motherfucker is dying there, because I know like he's probably quite young. 59. Okay, you know, his lifespan probably in his mid-70s, 16 years. It's feasible, but prison ages people fucking well very quickly. You know, a prison year is like 5 in real life. So he's dying in prison. I genuinely believe that. I don't think he's coming out like a pensioner, like, oh, I'm still in my 70s. No, he's dying there. So I think in terms of that, financial crime is a really difficult one for me, because you are literally taking advantage of the most desperate people. So I'm going to go 84, I think.
Okay.
Because he has deluded himself into thinking that he's just a businessman, but he clearly isn't. Everyone else, except for his close inner circle, knows what he did was really wrong.
Yeah, so I feel like you can't get convicted by a jury.
Yeah.
For like that much stuff, without having done something a little wrong.
Exactly, like multiple counts. If you're found guilty of all or most of them, like at some point you've got to say, okay, yeah, well, that one, you know, like have a little insight. Right. But he's like, no, I did nothing wrong. Well, of course you did. You did at least something wrong. Balance of, you know, scale, whatever.
Yeah. What did you do that this guy that's not going to prison in the same industry? Maybe that was wrong.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's where you need to look. Yeah. So that's what was his name? It's quite
Scott Tucker.
Scott Tucker, his name. Very, very American name. Who gets an 84, solid for what is basically a very run-of-the-mill con man who was legitimized for a while.
A good while.
Yeah, a good few years, enough to take advantage of, you know, millions of people. So yeah, fuck that guy. My guy is, how do I put this? He's less successful than your guy. We'll just put it this way, and also good because he's an Islamic fundamentalist. But he is, yeah, oh yeah. Don't worry, it's actually quite funny in places. When we think of fundamentalists, terrorists, jihadists, whatever term you want to use, there's a very specific, not even image, but like a sense that comes over you of the person that might be involved, and it's quite intimidating. It's quite scary. It's quite, wow, this is a bit intense, right? That's the feeling you get from the modern day interpretation of Islamic fundamentalists. It's not always the case. This guy came on my radar a while ago, years ago, and I just in a John Ronson book called Them, which I would encourage everyone to read. It includes Alex Jones, David Icke, this guy, bunch of other like super extreme people, and the book is based around the idea that extremists and conspiracy theorists the world over hold this belief that there is an all-powerful secretive group that control the world, and they're usually Jewish in most of these conspiracy theories. And it's a belief that is held by Islamic fundamentalists, conservative politicians, progressive. This person over here is like loads of different people hold it, and it's a kind of a study into why they hold it, who they are, what connections they have, despite the fact they're very, very different from each other and come from very different backgrounds, and where are the roots of this kind of idea of we're all being controlled. And there's some interesting conclusions drawn from it. But anyway, he is the subject of this book. He's one of the main focuses of this book because John Ronson spent years with this guy as a journalist on the streets of London. This is the story of Omar Bakri Muhammad, shortened to Omar Bakri for most of this. Osama bin Laden's man in London.
Omar, it's not a title you want, I don't think.
It's not. He gets a lot more. He gets a lot more titles as time goes on. Omar Bakri Muhammad was born into a wealthy family in the city of Aleppo in Syria. According to John Ronson, Bakri claimed that his family had chauffeurs and servants and palaces in Syria, Turkey, and Beirut. You're going to quickly find out that this man's only real skill is delusional bullshit, if that is a skill, to be honest. It's like,
I'm hoping it's a skill because that's what's going to get me there.
Yeah. It's a skill that's served me quite well for a long, long time. So from the age of 5, he was enrolled in the Al-Khatab Islamic boarding school, a primary school known as a madrasa that teaches children how to recite the Quran and kind of memorize it by heart and stuff like that. So it's quite a fundamentalist school for this time in the Islamic world, which, you know, before the various revolutions was actually kind of quite liberal. Various aspects of it were, like Jordan, Iran, places like this before there were the uprisings were actually quite liberal countries for the most part.
This is Syria, you said?
This is Syria, yeah, Aleppo, the real institutions there, the incredible learning hub of the Islamic world. He studied Quranic sciences, hadith, which is the sayings of the Prophet of Islam and his companions, fiqh, which is Islamic jurisprudence, no idea what that is, and Sirah, the detailed biography of the Prophet of Islam, etc., stuff like that. So large Islamic training from the age of 5.
That's
right.
It's not even training at that point, is it?
No. It's like I guess you call it schooling. Yeah, but it's like on a very specific subject. You know, this is the kind of thing that most people would study. Like they're like, oh, I'm going to study Islamic, like tenets of Islam, or something. I don't know what it would be called, but like something like that in university. This is the kind of thing that people choose to learn in further education, not at the age of like 5. That's for people in the Western world. That's very different from our experience of education.
Yeah. I mean, from 5 years old to be that in depth to religious studies, goodness.
Yeah, it's gonna shape your worldview, as is living in Aleppo in Syria at this time. Again, I have to point out, Syria has been a bit cut off, and a lot of that is to do with its interactions with neighbors, largely down to I wouldn't say interference, but Henry Kissinger kind of played some of the countries off against each other, and Syria became increasingly isolated in this scenario. And that's what drove the current ruling family of Syria into the position they are. They became very paranoid as a result of the kind of the political maneuverings of Kissinger and his crew. So,
see, and I think it's stupid little things like that to make people feel like there's them.
Exactly.
They're running everything.
Yeah, because Henry Kissinger at one point nearly was. He was a very powerful man. Anyway, Bakri joined the Syrian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood as a young man. However, he did not participate in the 1982 Hama revolt against the Syrian Ba'ath Party and the government of Hafez al-Assad. So the al-Assad family are the kind of the ruling dynasty of Syria. In 1979, Bakri left for Lebanon and eventually moved to Cairo in Egypt, where he studied at Al-Azhar University for 6 months. He left Al-Azhar before he could get a degree due to disagreements with his teachers. Basically, and this plays into, you know, he probably was quite rich. He's an entitled little prick. So... an Islamic fundamentalist who has a massive ego and is very entitled. It's kind of a weird combination, but you see it play out in a lot of his interactions.
Doesn't sound dangerous at all.
No, I want this. Give it to me. Otherwise, consequences. Throughout his life, Bakri said that he joined many Islamic movements, including, and I'm going to mispronounce a lot of these wrong, Muslims,
better you than me.
Well, yeah. Muslim students Ibad ul Rahman al Iqwam al Liha, Hizb ut Tahrir, According to interviews with Jamestown special correspondent Mahan Abedin, Omar Bakri joined Hizbut Tahrir HT in Beirut and maintained contact with it in Cairo and started a cell in Saudi Arabia. That's a lot of organizations, right? That's like 5 or 6 that he joined in like a space of a couple of years. It's like, who? This is the thing with these kind of cells. I'm surprised he had time to be that hateful in that many different organizations and places at any one time. Like, you'd be fucking tired. Being that angry with that many different groups of people at once. You'd be exhausted. That's a full-time job. Yeah. That's
unless maybe it was like groups like them super groups where they just add and take out members, but they're all really just one
traveling Wilburys or whatever it was. Yeah. Like, oh, Roy Orbison's died. We'll just replace him. Bakri said that he studied at the University of Al-Qar in Mecca, in the Islamic University of Medina. In 1984, the Saudi Arabian government arrested Bakri in Jeddah, but released him on bail. After his arrest, he decided to flee the fuck out of that country because, it's Saudi Arabia. He might not last long.
Yeah, didn't they just like execute 11 people the other day?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's like a
don't want to get arrested there.
Do not fuck around in Saudi Arabia because they may, it may end in lethal consequences. Bakri moved to the United Kingdom on the 14th of January 1986. Later, he traveled to the United States to study English, which seems like an odd move, but okay. He returned to the United Kingdom to assume the leadership of Hizb ut-Tahrir. I'm going to have to slow that down every time I say it, and became their spiritual leader. He defended the Muslim faith in public debates against Christian apologists such as Jay Smith, no idea who that is. In the UK, Bakri worked for 10 years helping to build up Hizb ut-Tahrir. According to an ex-associate, Mashid Nawaz, Bakri encouraged its members to engage in vigilantism against non-Muslims and Muslim women. Why are you targeting Muslim women? What's wrong with you?
He hates women.
He hates, he hates pretty much everyone, as you'll find as time goes on,
that's right.
He hates literally everyone. There isn't a specific man. So
15 hate groups.
Yeah, like he's like, I'll just like a smorgasbord of hate. I'll just a little bit from. I'll dip this one in that one. That's delicious.
We should make him go hang out, and maybe he could be the first Muslim white Aryan nation people would.
I guarantee this guy would. When you hear what he has to say, that is a distinct possibility for this guy. This is a quote from him. From his ex-associate, I should say. We were encouraged by Omar Bakri to operate like street gangs, and we did prowling London, fighting Indian Sikhs in the west and African Christians in the east. What? They're fucking.
Why would you fight a Sikh?
I know.
They're the nicest people ever.
They're the nicest people ever, and they carry swords. What the fuck is wrong with you? We intimidated Muslim women until they wore the hijab, and we thought we were invincible. That's a direct quote from this guy. Thank God he's an ex-associate. It's like gangs in New York, only much weirder and grosser, and oh, fucking hell. And we're not allowed to comment on it, but, that's just horrible. And the fact that was a thing. Actually, the 80s in London, that tracks, because there's a lot of uprising in London in the 80s. Thank you, Thatcher. It's at this point I want to introduce the main reason I'm covering this guy, his association with John Ronson and his appearance in John Ronson's book, Them. I just explained what it was about. And this book catalogues the years of interactions with Bakri and shows the day-to-day life of a British-based extremist. It's completely fascinating. There is an audiobook out there, but the one warning with audiobooks, they're all narrated by John Ronson, and he has a very unique voice, and it's not for everyone. So I'm just putting that out there. It sounds a bit like this. I first met Omar Bakri Muhammad shortly after he declared holy war on Britain in 1995. So I'm not going to do that. It's fucking exhausting, but that's how he sounds for thousands of words. It's quite something.
Downloading that right now.
It's not like the guy who read the Harry Potter books. That kind of wonderful, calming droll. It's not. It's like it's a northern, slightly high pitched, a little bit camp voice. There were maybe, so this is John Ronson's book now. There were maybe 5,000 of Omar Bakri's followers in Trafalgar Square when he announced that he wouldn't rest until he saw the black flag of Islam flying over Downing Street and the White House. Ambitious. That's really nailing your colors to the mast there, buddy.
What was his plan to get that to happen?
Stuff.
Okay.
Here's where we are. Flag above Downing Street and the White House. In between, stuff happens.
Okay.
And you'll find that it involves Coca-Cola bottles as well. So that's there was much cheering. We'll get to that. There was much cheering. The stage had been rented out to him by the local council, from which he outlined his post-jihad version of the UK. He who practiced homosexuality, adultery, fornication, or bestiality will be stoned to death or thrown from the highest mountain. Now, I'm sorry. I know the kind of people that believe this shit. The kind of people who want to kill the LGBTQI community or adulterers or anything like that are not the kind of people who are going to climb to the top of the highest mountain just to throw someone off because they're fucking lazy.
Yeah, it better have a ski lift.
Yeah, exactly. Because hate is the laziest option, and these fucking people hate. And there's no way they're climbing a mountain just to throw a gay person off. It's not happening.
Doubt they're gonna have the muscle and capacity to throw more than one decent sized stone.
Exactly. So yeah.
Although, if I'm gonna go out, I want somebody to throw me from the highest mountain.
Oh shit, yeah. Yeah, no, I want to have the majesty of the view. Yeah. Also, I'm just like, why is he wearing a flying squirrel outfit? Just don't question it. Just throw me. Just throw me, please. Christmas decoration. Oh, this is part. Yeah, it's just suckers.
Okay.
I love dick. This is carrying on from his speech. He's going to throw gay people, adulterers, fornicators, and people who fuck animals off mountains. Christmas decorations and shop window dummies will be outlawed. Dummies. Pubs will be closed. Boo. Pictures of ladies' legs on packets of pantyhose would be banned. We'd still be able to buy pantyhose, but they'd be advertised simply with the word pantyhose. That's just shit branding.
Yeah, a little bit. Plus, how you know what color they are?
Exactly.
What do they look like?
I know. I need some direction. It can't just say pantyhose. Sort of brown? Lighter sort of brown. You know?
If you go pick up a pair of pants and it's just pants.
Yeah.
Tan.
Yeah. Size? I don't know. Yeah, and like I know they haven't thought this one through. I very much wanted to meet I'm gonna do it, Omar Bakri, and spend time with him while he attempted to overthrow democracy and transform Britain into an Islamic nation. It turned out that he lived a couple of miles away from me in Edmonton, North London, in a small semi-detached house at the end of a cul-de-sac. I got his telephone number from the phone book. He's in the fucking phone book, this guy.
That's a horrible terrorist. I mean, fundamentalist.
Sorry, fundamentalist. He's not a terrorist. Of course not. He called back straight away. There were so many anti-Muslim lies, he said, generated by the Jewish-controlled media, of course. Rupert Murdoch, by the way, he ain't Jewish. He's a prick, but definitely not Jewish. So much misinformation in the newspaper and the movies. Perhaps this would be an opportunity for the record to be set straight. So yes, I was welcome to join him in the struggle against the infidels. And then he added, I'm actually very nice, you know. Are you? I asked. Oh, yes, said Omar Bakri. I'm delightful. At 9 a.m. Fucking terrorist.
This is going to throw people off mountains?
I know. And pantyhose. Some sort of brown. At 9 a.m. the next morning, I sat in Omar Bakri's living room while Omar played with his baby daughter. What's your daughter's name? I asked him. It's a difficult name for you to understand, said Omar. Does it have an English translation? I asked. Oh, yes, said Omar. It translates into English as the Black Flag of Islam. Really? I said. Your daughter's name is the Black Flag of Islam. Yes,
Elon
said
Musk
Omar.
ain't got nothing on me.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, said Omar. Really, I said. There was a small pause. You see, said Omar, why our cultures could never integrate. He's lying, by the way. His daughter's name does not mean the Black Flag of Israel. I looked it up. The Lion King was playing on a VHS video in the background. We watched the scene where the warthog sung Hakuna Matata, the song about how wonderful it is to have no worries and a problem-free philosophy. I struggled with that one. Omar sang along, bouncing the baby on his knee. We always watch The Lion King, he said. It's the only way I can relax. It's the only way I can relax is watching a Disney animated movie.
Wow.
You're getting a window into Islamic fundamentalism here, folks. He watches The Lion King every fucking morning.
That's horrible.
It's the only way I can relax, you know? They call me the lion. That's right. They call me the lion. They call me the great warrior, the great fighter. He's just making this shit up now.
He's just giving himself nicknames. That's
he is.
Up.
They call me this. Now, you've literally just thought this up. Also, you know, I just the great fighter who also happens to enjoy Disney cartoons. I really wonder, and this is something that I wondered as I was writing this down. Do you think he's ever been to the Broadway show? Do you think he's ever been to the Lion King? Yeah. Do you think he's seen the live action and he's like, oh, people are going to die over this. I am declaring a fatwa on whoever made this film. But like, it's so jarring. This guy who has said he will murder gay people, fornicators, blah, 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 just loves the Lion King.
Yeah, but Hakuna Matata, buddy.
Hakuna Matata. It's
unless you're gay, no freedom unless you're gay, cares.
Then fucking Hakuna off the mountain, motherfucker. Omar showed me his photo album. His teenage photographs made him look like a matinee idol. He came from a family of 28 brothers and sisters. Holy shit! His poor mum. It's like a little baby factory. That's terrible.
That's like a Pez machine.
She's just firing them right out. Yeah. His father had made a fortune selling sheep and pigs and cows. They had chauffeurs and servants and palaces in Syria and Turkey and Beirut. They probably had houses. I don't think they were palaces. Omar escaped. My house is my palace. My third bedroom is my mansion. Omar escaped Saudi Arabia in 1985. He'd heard he was going to be arrested for preaching the jihad. He escaped to Britain. Now he's a big man with a big beard. I love the way John Ronson gives backhanded compliments in this book. He basically just called him fat, right? And he's a big man with a big beard. Like, he passes it off as like a weird compliment. It's so funny. I was thin because I was always worried, he said. Yeah, personally, I was always thin because I was either suffering from the effects of Crohn's disease or I was poor. Worrying never really came into it. Yeah. I was so thin when I was poor. I was so in shape.
I actually got really fat when I was poor, but I was really thin all the early poor days.
Ah, yeah. There you go.
Because when I got to my adult poor days, well, I was poor of my own volition instead of my parents. That's when I started, the 99-cent meals and the processed food and 316 pounds.
Oh, shit.
At one point. Yeah.
Yeah. It was different for me. I couldn't afford processed food. I could barely afford to heat my apartment. I was so thin that my knuckles went purple from malnutrition.
Ouch!
It was really scary. My skin was starting to change color. That was really weird.
See, I think you guys just don't have the processed junk food that's peddled
we've
to the
got
poor
them,
people
but
here.
It's more expensive. So it's like it was easier for me to hang around the market at the close of the day and go like, "Can I have that onion for 5 pence? Can I have that pepper for 5 pence?" And like take it home and fry the shit out of it and just gobble it down. It wasn't enough calories, but at least it was something, So
yeah, it was more food than the food I ate. That's probably I ate sawdust and particles and chemicals.
Yeah. I'm sure I did as well when I was in university.
It's delicious.
Yeah, it's quite something. Anyway, back to the terrorist who likes the Lion King. I was always on the run. Now I live in Britain. I never worry. What's going to happen to me here? So I got fat. A leader must be big in stature. The bigger the body, the bigger the leader. Who wants a little scrawny leader? Apparently the Germans in 1940.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was too easy. It was too easy. Omar's plan for the morning was to hand out leaflets entitled "Homosexuality, lesbianism, adultery, fornication, and bestiality, the deadly diseases. I honestly thought it was going to end with my typical Sunday morning for a second when I was reading out those things.
Would have sold better.
Yeah, it would have done. Yeah, shit, yeah.
Sorry.
5 copies, thank you. He said he couldn't help notice my car in the driveway, so perhaps I could give him a lift. Fucking hell. Just another thing before we get into this. John Ronson is Jewish. So, yeah. Yeah, indeed. That will crop up later.
Things.
Yeah. Okay, I said. I dropped him off near the tube station. I went to park the car. 10 minutes later, I found him standing in the middle of the pavement with a stack of leaflets in his hand. How's it going, Omar? I asked. Oh, very good, he smiled. The message is getting across that there are some deadly diseases here and there. He turned to passers-by. Homosexuality, he yelled. Beware the deadly disease. Beware the hour. Some time passed. Homosexuality, yelled Omar. Beware the homosexuals are everywhere. It kind of makes them sound like secret police when he says it like that.
Yeah,
like
it's scary.
Russia. Yeah,
they're everywhere.
Like they're watching you. They're everywhere. No. A, they're not everywhere, and B, why do you make them sound like they're hiding?
I don't think it matters if they're everywhere, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah, they're everywhere. And I expect to see some hostility to Omar's leaflets from the passers-by, but the shoppers and tourists and office workers, and again, this is central London, no one has time for your shit, seem to regard him with kind bemusement, and that's probably the bitterest pill to swallow for him. He wants a reaction. Negative or positive, he wants to rile people up, and he's just getting fucking ignored.
That's why he came to America.
Yeah. He was like, I'm going to learn the tactics. Nevertheless, after 10 minutes, nobody had taken a leaflet. Beware the hour. There are homosexuals everywhere. Beware the hour. It's 3 p.m. Continued Omar cheerfully. Be careful from homosexuality. It's not good for your tummy. That's a fucking weird thing to say.
Really?
Upset
Why?
Bowels? What? It's not like really bad Mexican food. I don't know where he's getting that from.
Yeah. That's an odd stretch.
Yeah. It'll upset your tummy. Oh, that'll sell some leaflets. Yeah, that'll get people pick up.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Upset your tummy? Oh, give me that. Alka-Seltzer. Let me see. Omar Bakri was unlike my image of a Muslim extremist. Then he told me he had a good idea. Just watch this, he said. He turned the leaflets upside down. Help the orphans, he yelled. Help the orphans. Omar, I exclaimed, scandalized. The passers-by started to accept the leaflets. This is good, chuckled Omar. This is good, you see. If I wasn't a Muslim, I'd be working for, how you say, Saatchi and Saatchi? Fuck off. Those who don't know, Saatchi and Saatchi is the preeminent advertising agency in the UK. They gave starts to what's his name? Blade Runner, Alien, fucking Ridley Scott.
Oh, okay.
And Tony Scott. They were making television adverts for the Saatchi and Saatchi people back in the mid to late 70s. And then he decided to make Alien, and that was the end of his working on television. Yeah. At lunchtime, Omar said he needed to buy some collection boxes for his regular fundraising endeavors for Hamas and Hezbollah. Nice. You know, got to
those are some names.
Those are some fucking names. Hamas had orchestrated a bus bombing in Jerusalem 3 weeks earlier, which had killed 11 people. There was a cash and carry just off the ring road near Tottenham, said Omar. That sells very good collection boxes. Could you give me a lift?
He's inadvertently engaging in fundamentalism with him, just driving him around.
I know. Okay, I said. So we drove to the cash and carry. Omar sat in the back seat, which made me feel like a taxi driver. That's weird. Left, said Omar. Left at the junction. No left. At some traffic lights, I asked Omar where his wife was when I was at his house. She was upstairs, he said. She wouldn't come down until after you left. What would happen if I had tried to interview her? I asked. I would declare a fatwa on you, said Omar. Please don't say that, I said. Ha ha, said Omar. Even as a joke, I said. We arrived at the cash and carry to discover that the only collection boxes they had in stock were large plastic novelty Coca-Cola bottles. Omar paused for a moment. He scrutinized the collection boxes. He furrowed his brow. Then he placed half a dozen of them in his shopping cart. These are good collection boxes, he said, very big and lightweight. It seems strange to me, I said, that you plan to collect for Hamas in novelty Coca-Cola bottles.
For real?
Yeah, I know. Fucking another contradiction here. Said Omar Bakri, noted terrorist. I'm not against imperialist baggage, just the corruption of Western civilization. So just cross that on your checklist, folks. Imperialism, good. Corruption as a result of imperialism, bad.
Okay.
So, yeah. That's
Coca-Cola, where does that fall?
This guy's all over the map. Who knows? We packed our stuff into the trunk of my car and I drove Omar to Finsbury Park Mosque. That's become a bit notorious in this country in the last 20 years. It was a hotbed for extremism, and a lot of the preachers there were either deported. I think one of them serving life in prison, might even be on death row. Anyway, so yeah, big time. Where he was delivering a speech at a conference entitled Democracy or Dictatorship. Omar was speaking on behalf of dictatorship. Shocker, I know. It was my first opportunity to meet some of Omar's followers. There were maybe 500 of them in the audience. Things did not start well. Are you a Jew? Asked a young man. No, I lied. He apologized. Don't worry about it, I said. Omar Bakri was fast talking on the podium, as if he couldn't contain the words that needed to be said. He filled the room. He quoted from a letter he'd just received from an old friend, Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman, the blind sheikh. The blind sheikh was in jail for life in Missouri for inspiring the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993. The company this guy keeps. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's a big name there, too. He's fundraising for big names. He's connected to big names in bad.
He's a bit, I mean, it's not an apt comparison, but it's a bit like when we learned about Rick James and how he's connected to every fucking musician in history. Somehow.
The Allman Brothers?
The Allman, like fucking all these.
No,
he's staying at
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young almost was in there.
Bumps into Jim Morrison while he's sleeping over at Crosby's house and shit like that. So weird. So yeah, this guy is the Rick James of Islamic fundamentalism. Only, let's not compare Rick James to a terrorist. The blind sheikh was in jail in Missouri for inspiring the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993. The law of inspiration had been utilized. This law of inspiration had not been utilized since the American Civil War. Omar used to eat with the blind sheikh back in Saudi Arabia. After the speech, Omar said he needed to do some errands in town, and could I give him a lift? I agreed, although I feared I was beginning to cross the line between journalist and chauffeur. You should never cross the line. No way should you cross the line. Never become a chauffeur. Holy shit. I'm meeting someone in Soho, I said. So can I drop you off there? No, he said anxiously. It is forbidden for me to go into Soho. Please don't take me there. Soho would be razed to the ground, said Omar, once the Holy War had been won. It is important for people to understand these things, he said, so they will be ready to adapt to the new ways. I think I owe people an explanation. Soho. For a lot of people may not have been there because it's not like kind of on the traditional tourist trail of London. Soho it's the epicenter of the UK sex industry. And we're not just talking about like, oh, it's seedy, there's prostitutes there. It's like porn's made there, kind of every kind of sexual proclivity. Like Soho has kind of been the epicenter of the formation, or at least the cultivation of it over the years.
It's like a British Babylon.
Basically, yeah. It's like, think of the red light district in Amsterdam. It's basically that, right? Only it's like developed an entire culture because like it's now seen as a really important center for like the liberation of homosexuality and like the decriminalization of homosexuality and like the normalization of elements of sexuality that were forbidden or frowned upon and blah, blah, and all this. A lot of it started in Soho in the UK. So it's a very important town, but actually a part of London. But if you go to Soho, first of all, it's really beautiful. It's quite calm for central London. It's nice, quiet. There's a really nice park with, I think it's got a statue of Mahatma Gandhi in it as well. But also, I went there with my wife many years ago when we were dating. We went to see a gig there in a jazz club. And before that, I had a really nice chicken Kiev, really delicious chicken Kiev. And it was dirt cheap. So, like, I genuinely recommend you go to Soho. Do not think like Omar Bakri is about to say Soho actually is. Have you ever been to Soho? I asked. Oh no, said Omar. It is forbidden. What do you imagine Soho to be like? I asked. There are naked women everywhere, he said. Naked women standing on street corners. This is something that I never get right. Why the corner? Why is the corner so scandalous? Why is it seedier than the crossing or the pavement? Or what is it about the corner of streets?
It's the edge of the crossroads?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Go to a place where there's naked women everywhere. That sounds
naked
fantastic.
Women on every street corner. It does sound fantastic, but also like, no. Why would you ever think that? How is he this deluded that he thinks that naked women can just walk around in public? Like, that's a crime. That's indecent exposure in this country. You go to jail for that shit. So we got to talking about the word fundamentalism. Omar said it would have been redefined. It has been redefined by the infidels of the West as a pejorative term. You use it as an insult, Omar said. Turn left, please. But surely... I love it. But surely you're a fundamentalist, I said, in the sense that you live your life by the rules set down in the Quran. This is true, said Omar. The Quran rules every aspect of my life. Apparently, The Lion King is in the Quran now.
I did not know that.
No, well, there's a passage that we all need to read. Not Aladdin, though. Fucking hell, no. It tells me how I eat, how I sleep, how I fight, and even how I will die. No, it doesn't. Omar paused. You know, he said, the Quran even tells me which direction I must break wind in. There was a short silence. And which direction do you break wind in? I asked. In the direction of the non-believer, Omar said. The direction of the non-believer. Omar laughed heartily for some time. He then slapped me on the back. Jesus Christ.
He just runs around crop dusting people. That guy's a dick.
It's like an extra level of dickness right there. He's farting on people. What an absolute monster. Okay, said Omar as I pulled up near Piccadilly Circus. Thank you very much. Goodbye, John. As I drove away, I gave I gave my horn a little beep and mouthed the words, I'll call, like he's just finished a date. As the months progressed, I found my life becoming increasingly determined by Omar's whims. If you turn up late, he often said, I will give you 60 lashes. On many occasions, Omar would telephone me and call me over urgently. I'd cancel nights out with my wife and drive over to discover that he'd forgotten all about me and taken the train to Plymouth or Nuneaton or to his secret jihad training camp near Crawley. That's amazing.
That's messed up.
I know. And it's Crawley. It's so fucking amazing. That's like saying my secret jihadist training camp near Pittsburgh. It's just like, it doesn't work, you know? I sometimes felt I was getting a unique insight into what it would be like living under Islamic rule with Omar as Ayatollah. Time passed, and it was January, the first day of Ramadan. For months now, I'd been asking Omar to take me to his secret jihad training camp in Crawley, an anonymous commuter town near Gatwick Airport, which seemed a rather incongruous location for a jihad training camp. Finally, he agreed. We were picked up at Crawley station by some young local followers. These were people I'd never seen before. Omar said that in every town and every city in the country and many towns abroad, there were clusters of his supporters. Yeah, there's that word. Cluster, cells, maybe. When you put those people together, said Omar, you have an army. Oh, yes, he continued. There's a day when military struggle will take place in the UK. Jihad. It's called conquering. One day, without question, the UK is going to be governed by Islam. It's amazing that he thinks this was ever going to happen. The Muslims in Britain must not be naive. They must be ready to defend themselves militarily. The struggle, as I always say, is a struggle between two civilizations, the civilization of man and the civilization of God. Is he suggesting that he's God, or that all of his people are gods? That's blasphemy.
What, does he think he's Mormon?
I know. What the fuck? You find something buried and you now get to marry everyone? That doesn't work. We're
all gods.
We're all gods. Hooray! Easy life. I don't get to pay taxes. I am a deity. We were driven to the jihad training camp, a well-stocked. Sorry, I've just seen this sentence. A well-stocked gym in a scout hut in a forestry center. Fucking hell. He's in a scout hut in the middle of a fucking forest.
Like the Boy Scouts?
Yeah.
Doing jihad?
Yeah. Right. Here's your badge. This is for handling an AK correctly.
Do they have archery and bow?
Yeah. Learning how to light a fire. Yeah. They camp overnight. They experience the wonderment of nature, and then they declare the death of Western civilization.
His jihad training camp is the Scouts.
It's the Scouts hut. Holy shit, that's so fucking embarrassing. Snow lay on the ground. Inside, a young man wearing boxing gloves was beating a punching bag. And Omar immediately instructed him to focus his assault on the head, he said. That's it, the head. Easy, easy. Okay, stop now. Rest, rest. You killed him. You killed him. The group laughed, and I laughed too. This is so surreal. I was standing in the head. Punching him in the head. He's dead. It's okay. You can rest now. I was standing in one corner with my back against the wall. I found the situation slightly uncomfortable, and then, apropos of nothing, Omar made an announcement to the group. Look at me, he said. Here I am, with an infidel. John, Omar paused for effect, is a Jew.
What a dick!
I know. Brought him out to a fucking scout hut with a bunch of fundamentalists, and now he does that. There was an audible gasp followed by a long silence. Of all the locations in which Omar could have chosen to disclose this sensational revelation, a packed jihad training camp in the middle of a forest was not the place I'd hoped for. I found myself searching for the fastest path to the door. Are you really a Jew? Someone said eventually. Well, I said lightly, surely it's better to be a Jew than an atheist. There was a silence. No, it isn't. Said a voice in the crowd. Fucking hell. When did you know I was Jewish? I asked Omar. From the beginning, he said. I could see it in your eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Fuck off. He just looked him up. John Ronson's quite famously Jewish. I know. Yeah. Well, I said, yeah, why didn't you tell me? Well, I said, you know. Are you ashamed to be a Jew? Said Omar. You deny it? No, I said. I'm not offended that you're a Jew, said Omar. We are all Semites. If you were Israeli, if you were Zionist, that's a different matter. But what offends me is that you hide it. You assimilate. That you have no pride. I am proud, I said unconvincingly. But of course, Omar was right. I should have told him. Assimilation, tutted Omar. Integration. These are the worst things of all. Be a Jew. Fuck.
What?
I know.
Assimilation and integration are the best things. It's going to make humanity continue to exist.
Yes. Integration is how we've survived this long. It's how we continue to survive, not by isolating ourselves. Just so you know, John Ronson made it out alive and just quickly got the fuck out of there. Smart man. He continues to write amazing books to this day. In the years that followed my time with Omar, he sporadically made the papers calling for fatwa this or fatwa that, reaffirming the fatwa on Salman Rushdie after Iran had lifted it. What a bell end. But he also began to seem increasingly anachronistic at spent force. And that would all change during the week of the September the 11th, 2001. So this is all pre-9/11. The first sign that Omar had decided to initiate his own endgame came in the form of a press release he posted on the website on September the 12th. It read, "The final hour will not come until the Muslims conquer the White House. As America declare war on 1.5 billion Muslims worldwide, what is your duty? Omar then began to give a series of newspaper interviews in which he spoke of his delight at the attacks. Oh, wow, he told the Daily Mail. The United States has come under attack. It's exciting. The fucking Daily Mail readers would have ate that up. They just... Daily Mail is an extreme right-wing newspaper that pumps old people full of fear. It's fucking horrible. So, yeah, they'd have absolutely loved that. A number of his British followers joined the Taliban. At least 3 were, in Omar's words, martyred because of it. The Conservative leader, during an emergency session of Parliament, called for a change in the law so Omar could be deported. Scotland Yard arrested Omar, and they released him. He'd committed no crime. This is what a democracy looks like. I phoned Omar on the evening of his arrest. I expected to find him in a defiant mood, but he seemed a little scared. This is so terrible, he said. The police say they may deport me. Why are people linking me with bin Laden? I do not know the man. I've never met him. Do people say I am bin Laden's man in Great Britain? Because you've been calling yourself bin Laden's man in Great Britain for years, I said. Oh, John. It's your fault, you dumbass.
But I didn't mean it.
I was just saying things. Oh, John, said Omar, I need you now more than ever. You know I'm harmless, don't you? You always said I was laughable, didn't you? Oh, John, why don't people believe you when you tell them I'm just a harmless clown? Of course, someone who's a clown isn't always harmless, I thought about Omar when I watched the World Trade Center fall to the ground. Had he been a monster all this time, masquerading as a friendly buffoon to fool guileless liberals like me? I wonder if he duped me, or worse, if I duped myself. Someone once told me that I suffer from the great liberal misconception that everyone is basically good underneath. I'd argue instead that most people are a mix of good and bad, and that to see ourselves in them is better than seeing them as inhumane, something that is impossible to recognize. But I have to admit, there are moments when I think I went too far in befriending Omar. You fucking think, John? Jesus. If you hear this, John, we love you, but Christ alive. The last time I saw him in person was in 1996. It had been a year since he bought his novelty Coca-Cola Hamas collection boxes from the cash and carry. They were full now. A lot of loose change and £50 notes. Jesus. There was a check for £5,000 in one. Dear me. That's a really... if you're going to fund... Well, if you're going to fund fundamentalism, I don't think writing a check is the smartest way of going about it, to be honest. I think funneling that shit might be smarter. Omar and his deputy Anjem, who would later be called Anjem Chowdhury, who is... I think he might also be in an American prison now, were taking the collection boxes to the bank. The money would be converted into foreign currency and shipped off to the Middle East, where it would be used to fight against Israel. Omar had some business to finish. Anjem packed the bottles in the back of his car. Then he remembered that he'd left his coat inside. He said, "Could you guard the money for a moment? I won't be long." "Okay," I said. John Ronson thinking he could set fire to the fucking car and just be done with it all. Anjem disappeared, and I was left standing guard over thousands of pounds, money that would go to Hamas to kill the Jews in Israel. For a while, I stood there. I know.
I can't help but feel like I would have just drove away with it.
Yeah.
I'd have been like, bye.
I'd have driven into the river. Fuck that. For a while, I stood there, and what was I doing? Guarding money that would be used to kill the Jews. And then I understood that I had to take the money. I had to reach into the car, grab the Coca-Cola bottles, and make a run for it. Good on you, John. This was my responsibility, my duty. I had an obligation to do this. I had the strength to carry 2 bottles. How many lives might that save? Jesus, that's dark. Omar and Anjem were inside. The car was unlocked, but I didn't do it. Of course, I just stood there. And then Anjem and Omar returned, thanked me for my help, and took the money to the bank. In 1996, Bakri split. So that's the end. That's the end of John Ronson's account. I'm going to carry on with the rest of the shit, but I just have to ask you now: what do you think of his interactions with Omar Bakri at this point in the story?
Shit, his involvement and his help kind of made him an accomplice in anything that he did.
Yeah. This is the line you walk as a journalist is you are not supposed to interfere in the process of documenting your subjects, but there's a point at which I think you probably have a responsibility to do something, and I feel like in that moment, I understand why John Ronson didn't do it.
Right.
It's that moment of action. Everyone thinks I'd be a hero. And like you said, I'd drive the car. And I'm like, half of it's jokingly, right? Because also there's the intimidation factor. There are two Islamic fundamentalists inside who are funding stuff after 9/11. That's kind of scary right there. So,
a little bit,
yeah. So anyway, I don't think John Ronson needs to worry. People had their eye on Anjem Chowdhury and Omar Bakri. So I'll just get to that in a second.
Well, yeah, I say that I would have jumped in and drove the car. I probably would have, because I've done dumb stuff like that before anyway. Just because it's like, I can't now. I served as a driver for a fundamentalist and crossed that line.
Yeah.
And now I helped him guard his money to ensure that it got to effectively do what it was supposed to do. Exactly. Now I'm part of the damn cell.
Basically, at that point, you're on the inside. It's an interesting point you make there. This may be a sweeping statement and maybe sweeping generalization, but I feel like Americans will be more likely to get in the car and drive away and take the money than British people would, because we've still got this kind of like, oh, but that's rude sort of mentality. It's like, you can't do that. There's a person, this is not the done thing. It's like, no, burn the fucking car down and, maybe call the police at the same time.
I'd have kept the money, though. I mean,
that check for £5,000 was pretty good. Go to a payday lender. It's free money, even if you're getting taxed on it.
Right.
So, so in 1996, Omar Bakri split with his Oud Tahrir over disagreements on policy, style, and methods. He declared that Al Mujahirun was an independent organization and continued as its emir until 2003. After the September the 11th, 2001 attacks in the United States, Bakri praised the attackers as magnificent, which is an odd choice of words, even for an Islamic fundamentalist who's like poking people. It's like react.
Maybe he got it from Lion King?
Maybe he did.
It's magnificent.
It's a circle of life. He began to support the theology and philosophy of Al Qaeda. Yeah, he's just a fucking edgelord at this point, isn't he? Bakri said that he had become a Salafi Muslim. Media outlets and the British Muslims criticized him for his open support of various international jihadist organizations. On September the 13th, 2001, Bakri told the Daily Mail again, when I first heard about the attacks, there was some initial delight about such an attack. I received a phone call and said, oh, wow, the United States has come under attack. It was exciting. The fucking Daily Mail just love interviewing extremists and scaring old people. It's really not right.
I just realized something here too.
What's that?
Osama bin Laden's like a tall, skinny dude, and he was saying that skinny dudes are horrible leaders. Maybe that's why it took him so long to join Al Qaeda.
You've got to be a fat man to be a leader.
Sorry.
All the best leaders in history were fat. No, that's not right. Anyway, yeah, that's a good point, actually. He was slagging off, and maybe that's why he wasn't his friend. He's slagging him off. They had a falling out. You called me skinny, you prick. According to the Times, Bakri was left alone by British law prior to 2005, despite actions such as issuing a fatwa containing a death threat against President Pervez Musharraf of Pakistan, because Bakri, who acts as something spiritual leader, insisted that his followers obey a covenant of security, which, while encouraging terror abroad, forbade them from carrying out attacks in Britain. And I'm not sure I trust the Times on this one, not because of the story itself and the fact that the Times are super dodgy as well, but also because they seem to genuinely believe that law enforcement weren't watching him like a hawk, which is really fucking naive, actually. So, I guess they were probably told not to say anything, but they must have known that he was under surveillance at this point. Finsbury mosque was after 2002. Every Finsbury Park mosque open air thing was. There were thousands of people there, including members of the security service in hiding. So, yeah. So they must have known. Anyway, in November 2004, Bakri disbanded his group, saying that all Muslims should unite together against a hostile West. 3 months later, Bakri said this covenant of security was no longer in force, having been violated by the British government. Experts note, according to the Times, that the July London bombings followed 4 months later. Ooh, wonder if he's got anything to do with that. The same article reports the Sunday Times has identified more than a dozen members of ALM, that's his group, and who have taken part in suicide bombings or who have become close to Al Qaeda and its support network. Included Mohammed Naeem Noor Khan, a computer expert now in a Pakistani prison, Zishan Siddiqui from Hounslow, West London, Bilal Mohammed from Birmingham, and Azifi Hanif. Bakri received an estimated £250,000 in state benefits while claiming asylum in the UK since 1986. Now, after he left the country in 2005, he was banned from ever entering the country again. I genuinely believe his asylum claim. This is going to be an interesting thing. I genuinely believed that if he was going around Saudi Arabia declaring jihad on any fucking person he felt like, that eventually he was going to be killed. So I completely believe that he needed to get out of Saudi Arabia. I just, he's a bit of an agitator. Go on, you got something on the edge of your tongue.
It's that whole thing of it's one of the characteristics or I don't even know the right word for it, but the asylum was real, and they probably would have killed him.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Good, but at the same time,
you
don't want somebody getting killed, so you feel like you got to help people even if they suck.
I know,
and that's the sign of a good person. I think you help people even if they suck, rather than I know this is bad, but it's legal, so I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I know. It's like, in a sense, it does make me proud in a weird way that my country, which at this time was run by New Labour, so it was a slightly left-wing government, although not really, because Tony Blair ain't left-wing, is that they were willing to accept people who were genuine asylum seekers, no matter how dangerous they were. Now, obviously, we have learned that since then there are mechanisms in place that monitor the activities of these people, and GCHQ, which is the British like CIA or FBI, whatever it is, they're very, very good at monitoring internal cells. And we don't typically have any terrorist incidents other than occasional like London Bridge incident with like a car or stabbings and stuff. We don't really get bombings or mass shootings. Don't really get anything like that. And a large part of that is because of stuff like Omar Bakri and Anjem Choudhury and all of these extremists and their preachings. There is a mechanism in place that watches them, but we still allow them to come into this country and be free. And despite the fact that they use that freedom to spread hatred and bile and blah, 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 it's a democratic country, and you cannot draw the line in that situation. You just be careful. You make sure that they are watched, and you make sure that they don't attempt to destroy the mechanisms, but you have to let these people in because it's the right thing to do ultimately.
Plus it gives you the opportunity to they get the opportunity to feel that freedom, to live in that way. They might be like, maybe all this hate sucks. Maybe some of this freedom and carefree living in Hakuna Matata is the way to go.
Exactly. Eventually, even if it's one person, say 5 fundamentalist believers come into the UK and they're dead set against the West, but actually if they experience the better parts of that society and they see obviously there's definitely lots of shit wrong in the UK and has been for a long, long time. But if they see the balance of things compared to the fact that they might have been murdered in Saudi Arabia, I actually feel like there is a mellowing effect potentially on these people, and I really do hope that's the case, because a truly integrated democratic society, it's one of the greatest things, and to be able to live in a peaceful world It's we've both experienced weirdness in the world. It's such to be able to sit down and go, oh, thank God,
Yeah.
It's a really great feeling, and everyone should be allowed to experience that, no matter who they are or where they come from.
And once you experience it, it's life-changing.
Yeah, exactly.
Should be.
It really is. The easy chair is a wonderful place to sit. Okay, so now let's move on from that wonderful notion to alleged ties to terrorism. British newspapers have called him the Tottenham Ayatollah, which I fucking love, despite him identifying as Salafi and the title Ayatollah being linked to the Shia epitaph.
There's more subgenres than punk.
I know, yeah. There's a lot going on there. Former Conservative MP Rupert Allison described him as a terrorist who believes in planting bombs and blowing up women and children in Israel. I mean, that's true. Roland Jacquard, a French expert on Islamic terrorism, said that every Al-Qaeda operative recently arrested or identified in Europe had come into contact with Omar Bakri at some time or another.
Damn.
That's webs everywhere.
Yeah.
Internet broadcasts now. In January 2005, the Times monitored live 90-minute internet lectures from Bakri in a chat room in which he told listeners, I believe the whole of Britain has become a Dal al-Harb, land of war. The Kufar, non-believer, has no sanctity for their own life or property. He said Muslims should join the jihad wherever you are, and told a woman she was allowed to do a suicide bombing. Holy shit. In another broadcast, he said Al-Qaeda and all its branches and organizations of the world, that is the victorious group, and they have the Emir, and you are obliged to join. There is no need to mess about. 2 days later, in another broadcast, he said that dead mujahideen are calling you and shouting to you from distant places. Al-Jihad, Al-Jihad. They say to you, my dear Muslim brothers, where is your weapon? Where is your weapon? Come on, the jihad. Fuck me.
Goodness.
I know. Andrew Dismore, a Labour MP, claimed that with these words, he may well be committing offences under the Terrorism Act and other legislation. I'll be raising this immediately with the Home Secretary and the Metropolitan Police. Next section is the financing of Mujahideen. On the 24th of October 2006, British security officials arrested Omar Bakri's son, Abdul Rahman Fostock, at Heathrow Airport and seized £13,000 that he intended to deliver to Bakri in Lebanon. He'd moved to Lebanon at this point. He'd moved back home. The money was held under the Proceeds of Crime Act pending an investigation, but Fostock was allowed to board his flight. Responding to this, Bakri said, I am not expecting any problem with the money, but if I do not get it, there will be trouble. I will take action because it is my property. God says you must do all in your power to get something back if it is taken from you. Even if it costs you your life, they will pay with fire.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, like...
Is that like a new credit card?
Yeah. Oh, it's a festival. He's talking about the festival.
They're going to pay with their tickets to the Fire Fest.
Yeah, those fake plastic fucking things. On the 31st of January 2007, British police arrested 9 suspected terrorists who were allegedly planning to kidnap, torture, and behead a British Muslim in the army, all of which would be videotaped and later broadcast on the internet. The soldier had been... I know. The soldier had served in the war in Afghanistan, but had returned home to Britain on temporary leave. On the 4th of February, secret recordings of Bakri Muhammad emerged in which he calls for the attack. Bakri told listeners, when you meet infidels, slice their own necks. And when you make the blood spill all over, the enemy becomes so tired. Now start to take from them prisoners. Then free them or exchange them until the war is finished. Verily, they remained the sunnah of removing the head of the enemy. It goes on about removing heads and swords and bodies and shit. He previously called for a kidnapping terrorist attack in 2005. In another incident, he said he hoped somehow would capture British Muslims who are in the army over there. He said that a Baslin-style attack is all right if children are not killed. Not deliberately killed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Not deliberately killed.
Yeah. They're fine. It's okay if they die accidentally, but, don't deliberately kill them, you monster.
Does this guy think that the non-believers are like outlanders or something? Off with their heads.
I know. And off with their heads. And also the women are naked on every street corner, but not on the middle of the road, on the corner. It's the corner that's the dodgy part. Arrests and conviction in Lebanon. So it's time. A future television interviewed Bakri, on the 11th of August 2005. Bakri said he did not have ties to Al Qaeda, calling it a media creation, and said he did not intend to return to Britain. During the interview, Bakri said, "I left Britain on my own accord, though I have not been accused of anything there or in Lebanon, but the London attacks are the reason I have returned to Lebanon." Yeah, I bet they fucking are. According to the media reports, Lebanese police arrested Bakri as soon as he left the building after the interview. Police later said the arrest was a routine arrest to determine his reasons and his residency in Lebanon were legitimate. No, he's just on holiday. Lebanese Information Minister Ghazri Aridi later said Bakri was arrested as a precautionary measure. The British ambassador to Lebanon, James Watt, said we had not requested for his arrest nor for his extradition. As far as I'm concerned, this is a very simple story. It's a Lebanese citizen who returned to Lebanon and has been arrested by the Lebanese police. We have nothing to do with it. It's not in our place to comment on what's happened. In mid-November 2010, Bakri was sentenced to life in prison in Lebanon in a terrorism case that he claimed to know nothing about. He was subsequently released on bail when witnesses who testified against him withdrew their testimony. I wonder why.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. That is bad.
They let terrorists out on bail?
Who gets released on bail when they threaten a terrorist attack across multiple parts of the world?
But if he pays, he'll be okay. He won't do it if he knows he's gonna come back to jail.
Yeah, let's get him a really big bond. Right, that'll stop him from running. After his release, he was reported to be living in Tripoli. In April 2014, his home was raided by Lebanese security forces because of his alleged involvement in fighting between the areas of Al-Wait community and the local Sunnis. He fled the city, and the Lebanese Authority announced he was wanted for endangering national security. In May 2014, he was arrested in the city of Alay, and in a press conference, the Lebanese Interior Minister alleged that Bakri has contributed in every aspect in supporting terrorism. I mean, basically, why was he living free? In October 2014, Bakri was sentenced to 6 years in prison with hard labor by a Lebanese court for founding a Lebanese affiliate of Al-Qaeda-linked Syrian terror organization group Al-Nusra Front, and of building a training camp for Nusra fighters in Lebanon, probably in a scout hut in the middle of a forest.
He better be careful with that hard labor. He's going to get skinny, and then he can't be a leader.
He can't be a leader anymore. If he's small and skinny, oh my God, who leads small and skinny? The following year, Napoleon, two of Bakri's sons were killed fighting in the ranks of rival extremist group, the Islamic State.
Uh-oh.
The first, Mohammed, was killed in Aleppo, Syria, and the second, Bilal, in Salah al-Din province in Iraq in 2015. And that is all I have on Omar Bakri, Mohammed Osama bin Laden's man in London. What do you make of the tale of Omar Bakri?
So many questions.
Yeah, that's what I was like when I was reading. I was like, what is this guy? He's bad at everything as well.
Yeah. Well, and then here's another question that I have, though.
Yeah.
How did he get asylum from Saudi Arabia in Britain when he's Lebanese? Why wouldn't he just go home?
I know.
They're going to kill me here. I'll go home.
Well, yeah. I wonder if, and I mean, this is just conjecture, right? The 1980s in London, there was a lot of kind of, it was seen as a really multicultural city, despite the kind of political upheavals and the riots and stuff that were happening. So I guess the proliferation of media around it being like, a lot of multicultural area, a lot of different areas, people moving, from different countries, former members of the British Empire to London. I wonder if that influenced his decision, but also the fact that we have and had at the time, free healthcare, and he would have been able to get various unemployment benefits and money to maintain a lifestyle, and he would have been given housing for free. So
how pissed off do you think I gotta make my government to get asylum over there?
I know, just like really piss off the right person, right? Like,
this guy sucks, and he was nice to the Jewish guy and made him drive him around, but that's really just using the reporter to contribute to his cell organization.
Exactly. And like this whole thing about the infidels and blah, blah, blah. He's fine with someone he knows is Jewish driving him around so that he can do all of this shit. Yeah. So
dude,
where's the line?
Yeah, he was farting. That's why he sat in the back. He was rolling
sitting in the back seat. Why'd you keep turning around, Omar? Why'd you keep pointing your ass at me while I'm driving? Yeah, just an awful person. Really horrible.
The amount of hate groups he was in,
plus
the shady London bombing probably was his fault thing.
He was involved in at least some. Like, I think it was a lot of it was influence. So, like, he had a profile. He was influencing people's decisions. He was using specific words, and then boom, 4 months later, you've got the London bombing,
right?
Killed hundreds of people. So,
it's. I don't know. It's like having a rally in Washington and using specific words and saying things, and then all of a sudden you got a group of people that do some crazy shit.
And then going, oh, it wasn't my fault. What the fuck are you talking about? Leave my emails alone.
So, death, hate, bad stuff.
He's such a
eating up Sikhs. Well. I like Sikhs, though.
Yeah. I have a lot of Sikh friends. I've known a lot of Sikhs in my life because, there's a very diverse in the parts of the UK I've lived. There's a big like Asian community in the West Midlands, and I've never met an angry or miserable or upset Sikh in my entire life. I've known dozens of them. It's weird. So
they've all just been cool to me. So
yeah. And I don't get it. I think it's just hate.
Yeah,
he would go and target the Sikhs. Why? Why are you doing that? It's just a group of people that aren't you, basically. There's nothing to do with it.
Which apparently they can be like you, but not you, because if you're the wrong type of Muslim, you're not cool either.
Yeah, or if you're the wrong gender. Fucking hell. Watch out.
Yeah.
If you're a woman or a fan of bestiality, you had better watch out, because this fucker's throwing you off a mountain.
I think just the terrorist ties, though. To get him a score so I can wander off on other things. Just from being a terrorist automatically, fundamentalist, automatically gets you a 90.
Yeah.
The number of groups that he was in, and the fact that he made a journalist complicit in that bothers me, because I can see how it happened, and I know that asshole did it on purpose.
Oh yeah, the manipulation was strong.
Yeah. So I'm going 94 on him.
Solid, thank you. That's a very that's an interesting score, and it's odd because you may get people saying, well, he didn't kill anyone, but actually, when we look at the grassroots of a lot of problems, we look at Midgley Jr., whatever his name is, Midgley Jr., who invented, leaded fuel and leaded paint and CFCs and stuff like that. He didn't kill anyone, but he knew what was going on. He knew what he was doing, and it led to a lot of death and a lot of problems. And it's the same thing with the guy who wrote the Turner Diaries and this guy and his protege, Anjem Choudhury. They may not have been directly involved in the murder of someone, right, or a large group of people, but they know exactly what they're doing, and they are hoping for the worst possible outcome every time. And
their fingerprints are all over it.
Yeah. So I get it. When you are a terrorist or someone who is completely aware that your actions are going to result in its significant damage to massive groups of people, you're always going to be high on our scale of idiocy, for sure.
Yes. Yep.
But what do you make of his life with John Ronson and the
Oh
fucking
my
Lion
God.
King shit? And
the dude is weird.
Really weird.
Like, he doesn't even know that he very much so didn't seem like an angry person there. It's almost like an internet troll, but like in real life.
Yeah, I know. And like so many contradictions in his like professing of a lifestyle and then the way he's actually living.
Right.
It's so odd. I mean, there are other quotes from this book, right? There's loads of it. Ironically, there's a section in between the bits that I read where John Ronson goes to meet a conservative politician who's also an author who was dead. He was honestly out to get Omar Bakri. And the conservative politician was like, these people cannot come here. They cannot come to our shores and do this. And then John's like, so you think they should bring the death sentence back, right? And he's like, oh yeah, we definitely should be killing people. Like, what do you think about rights for LGBTQ people? It's like, oh no, I don't believe in it. So it's like they're kind of two very similar angry arseholes in the same sphere.
We hate the same shit, but I also hate him.
Yes, we hate everything, but we like that we hate the same things, but we hate each other.
Yes.
So,
yep.
It's
yeah.
I wish I knew more about this guy. I wish I knew what was going on with Omar Bakri now. I suspect he's either dead or in prison. I couldn't find anything about what's going on with Omar Bakri. Even in the last, there's nothing on him in the last decade, like in the last, the kind of 2020s. Like, there's nothing I can find on him anywhere. And I spent a good time.
I hope he's chilling somewhere, watching Lion King without internet or a phone.
Yeah, just
miles from anybody.
Just get him a little scout hut in the woods, There
you go.
Give him a VHS copy of The Lion King, and he'll just fucking chill out until he slowly dies. And he's an interesting case.
I'm stuck on that Lion King thing too, because Hakuna Matata, freedom and then fundamentalism don't go together.
I know, he doesn't see it. It's so weird. And again, it's the whole they don't believe their own hype. They believe their own stuff, basically, is it. They completely buy into it despite the multiple contradictions around them. So that is Omar Bakri, the lion, whose daughter is named after the black flag of Islam, apparently. and Scott Tucker.
Yes, sir.
Scott Tucker. AMG services, stealing money from people who desperately needed it. He's the reverse Robin Hood, and he couldn't even fucking see it. So I think the lesson for this episode is, and it seems to be the lesson with every episode, right? But have some insight, accept criticism from people outside of your sphere, because a lot of both of these guys didn't, and they didn't see where they were going wrong. I think Omar Bakri probably knew, though. I think he probably knew what he was doing.
You kind of have to, I think, in that field.
Yeah. I just think so much of it is hate. He's like, okay, the hate's easy, right? I'll focus in on that. Let's not think about the fact that I hate Western civilization, but I'm watching a Disney film, know? So so that's the story. Have some insight, but also, try not to take advantage of systems that try and encourage freedom, despite the fact that you are rallying against them. I think that's really wrong.
Yeah. So don't use loopholes to be a dick. That's the lesson.
Yes, there's the lesson. Don't use loopholes to be a dick. There's the lesson for this. That's so perfect. That's succinct. And yeah, oh man, if we could write a book about don't use loopholes to be a dick, we should write a book. We should write a book. We're thinking about writing a book, but we may come to that. But yeah, I think that's been our lesson. This has been our episode. This has been a long episode. This is getting on for 2 hours, man. I really enjoyed looking into Omar Bakri, mostly because of John Ronson. I would recommend that anybody reads. And John Ronson, I didn't give enough background. He wrote The Men Who Stare at Goats. He also wrote great movie. He wrote Frank, which was turned into a film with Michael Fassbender and Maggie Gyllenhaal. He wrote, oh God, what was the other thing he wrote? Loads of books. A couple of them. He wrote The Psychopath Test, which is behind me on the bookshelf just now, it has the best opening chapter of any book I've ever read in my life. It's amazing. I highly recommend you read John Ronson's books because they're the kind of things you can read in 3 days and you'll be like, wow, that was a really easy read. I was fascinated by that. So yeah, go out of your way to read John Ronson's books, but don't go out of your way to take people's money or kind of declare a jihad on anyone. That's really not good. So if you would like to follow us on social media, I nearly forgot the call to action. That was so close. If you would like to follow us on social media, if you go to at History's Greatest Idiots on Instagram or at Greatest Idiots on Twitter. And if you would like to become our very first Patreon, if you go to patreon.com/History's Greatest Idiots, you can get hold of merch and we'll talk to you and you can help us keep the show kind of going and help us earn money because God only knows advertising is not well paying as a podcast. So.
And go be a Patreon because then maybe I'll start writing my articles again and you won't have to deal with me just freeballing it there like that.
I actually really enjoyed that. I am happy for you to carry on doing that. I really enjoyed the freeballing aspect of it. It's something that I would do if I didn't have such a massive control complex.
Oh yeah, it was hard, because I'm like, but I also really like talking with you and just having conversations, and your input is just entertaining and fun. So if I can get you talking on stuff, I'm happy.
I'm always happy to fill in the silences, just as I'm really happy when you fill in the silence when I'm taking a gulp from my drink. But I
makes the dream work.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the cooperation. I really enjoyed this episode. So until next time, please don't use loopholes to be a dick. That's the lesson. Thank you so much. Derek, would you like to say goodbye?
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening and hanging out.
Yeah, and we will see you again soon. Take care now. Bye.